So, why are gaming tablets becoming so popular? Gaming tablets are definitely having a moment. After years of this weird middle ground that nobody quite understood, suddenly everyone is making them. You got Real Magic, ASUS, OnePlus, they're all jumping in, and leading the charge is Lenovo with this, the Legion Tab Gen 3, an 8.8-inch Android tablet that is unapologetically built for gaming. But here's the thing that has been bugging me. Why now? We've had powerful phones for years. We have the Steam Deck, the MSI Claw for portable PC gaming. The Switch exists, hell, the Switch 2 just launched. So why are gaming tablets suddenly everywhere? Well, after spending 3 weeks with this, the Legion Tab Gen 3, I think I've figured it out. And spoiler alert, it's not just about the games. At 999 Australian dollars, the Legion Tab Gen 3 is playing in premium territory, and that is dangerous. It's actually more expensive than the Steam Deck OLED at $899. It costs way more than even the new Switch 2 at $699, and even edges past the base iPad mini, which is $799. That's a bold pricing strategy for an Android tablet, even one with flagship specs. But unlike those devices, this is trying to be something completely different. A gaming-first Android tablet that does not apologize for what it is. So, first impressions. Well, this thing, it is dense. At 350 grams, it's kind of heavier than you would expect, at least for an 8.8-inch device, which sounds small, right? But this screen is actually pretty big. The aluminium build, though, is solid. The Gorilla Glass 5 front is reassuring, and the whole package, it just feels like it could survive being thrown in a backpack without second thought. This Eclipse Black colorway is also really understated. It's got no RGB, thankfully. No aggressive angles, just a clean slab with a subtle Legion logo that, yes, absolutely attracts fingerprints like a magnet. It's actually really hard to keep clean. The 8.8-inch size here is the first clue about what Lenovo is going for. This is not a productivity tablet that is pretending to game. It is not a media consumption device with gaming as an afterthought. The size is deliberately chosen for handheld gaming comfort. If you hold it in landscape like this, your thumbs naturally reach every part of the screen without a huge need to stretch. Your fingers wrap around the back nice and comfortably, and after an hour of playing PUBG Mobile, my hands were not cramping at all, which is something I can't actually say about gaming on an iPad. And that's kind of when it clicked. Gaming tablets are not competing with consoles or PCs. They're competing with your phone. Because let's be honest, mobile gaming on your 6-point-whatever-inch phone is compromised. Your thumbs, they cover half the action. The text is tiny. Your phone gets hot and absolutely murders your battery. Sure, you could game on a folding device like this, a Pixel, but these are compromised. They're not very powerful and they're just not the best for gaming. And so the Legion Tab, it kind of solves a lot of those problems while still fitting in the same bag pocket as your Switch. Here's the thing that people don't realize. Mobile gaming is the largest segment of gaming by far. Mobile games generated about $92 billion in revenue in 2024, which is 49% of the total gaming market. Console games only made up 28% at $51 billion, and PC games were even less, 23% at around $43 billion. So half of all gaming revenue comes from mobile. Yet we're still trying to play these games on devices that just weren't really designed for it. But the display kind of proves that it isn't just about size. It's a 2560 by 1600 LCD, which sounds pretty pedestrian until you realize that it's running at 165 Hertz, not 120 Hertz like most flagship phones, 165. Scrolling is noticeably smoother, but more importantly, games that can actually push those frame rates feel actually completely different. The 500 nit typical brightness will not win any awards, and outdoors you will absolutely struggle to watch anything, to play anything. It's not very bright. But indoors, it is perfectly fine. What's not fine though is the lack of OLED. In 2025, especially at this price, this LCD, it does feel dated. The blacks are grayish, colors lack that kind of punch you want, and coming from any modern phone, you do notice it's just not as good. But here's the thing, Lenovo chose this LCD panel for a reason. You don't get any burn-in risk from static UI elements in games. You've got no OLED flicker that some people are actually sensitive to, especially during long gaming sessions. And presumably it also keeps costs down to pack in the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 that's inside of here. Speaking of which, the performance story here is fascinating. The Legion Tab has the exact same chip as the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, a product twice as much as this. But unlike Samsung's flagship, it doesn't have to worry about fitting in your pocket. The cooling system is 14% larger in this than the previous generation. There's actual room for heat dissipation, and Lenovo Legion Space software lets you push the chip harder than any phone would dare. When you pull from the side and you press that performance mode, this thing absolutely delivers. You can see the clock speeds increase between energy saver, normal mode, and performance. In World of Tanks Blitz, this thing runs at a full 120 Hz on maximum graphic settings. That is the absolute max you could do for that game. Something most phones cannot maintain for more than just a few minutes. Asphalt 8 screams along without any hiccups, and PUBG Mobile on max graphics stays locked at its 60 FPS max throughout the entire match. There is zero dips, zero stuttering, even in the final circles. The Galaxy S25 Ultra with the same chip, well, that gets noticeably warmer, and you can thank this big size and the good cooling in here for allowing you to play these games at max graphics for as long as you really want. The Legion Space app, though, is where Lenovo shows they understand their audience. When you swipe in from the side during any game, you get real-time CPU, GPU stats, temperatures, quick toggles for performance modes, RAM clearing, even network optimization. It is very nerdy control that PC gamers kind of expect, but mobile just does not deliver. You can see exactly when you are thermal throttling, which I'll be honest with you, I have not thermal throttled on this thing yet, and you can watch your frame times in real time and adjust on the fly. However, the software story is not all positive. ZUI 16, Lenovo's Android 15 skin for gaming, it's functional, but a little bit uninspired. And when you come from Samsung's One UI or even stock Pixel, which is my favorite Android experience, it really does feel a little half-baked. It also tries to get you to install a bunch of bloatware, which I found actually just kind of rude. The app situation is also complicated. Android tablets have always had this problem, but it's especially obvious here. Games work absolutely fantastically. They're flawless. They're designed for touch, they scale well, and the extra screen space is really welcome. But the moment you try to do anything productive, the illusion kind of falls apart. Instagram is clearly just a stretched phone app. TikTok as well, it's fine, but everything becomes lower resolution. Even Google's own apps feel a little bit like afterthoughts, which brings us to the ecosystem problem. The Legion Tab exists in this weird vacuum. It doesn't have the accessory ecosystem of an iPad. There's no stylus support for note-taking. There's no official keyboard case for productivity. Really, you get this tablet and that's about it. You can, of course, Bluetooth your own Android-compatible controller or keyboard, but yeah, this thing is definitely a tablet. And tablets feel a bit compromised. But then there's the battery story, because it is a tablet, and suddenly things get interesting again. The 6,550 milliamp hour cell is smaller than most 10-inch tablets, but remember, this is smaller. It is smaller with a lower screen resolution, and in practice, I'm getting about 8 to 10 hours of mixed use, or about 5 to 6 hours of intense gaming sessions. That actually destroys most phones and even matches the Switch 2, except it charges faster than a lot of other devices. Although you only get an included 45-watt charger, this thing can charge at up to 68 watts and go dead to full within about an hour. And from dead to 50%, just 20 minutes. And even better, both USB-C ports support bypass charging. You plug it in while gaming and battery goes straight to the system and not the battery. That means your battery doesn't degrade as fast, performance stays consistent, and heat management improves drastically. It's the kind of smart engineering that shows that Lenovo really does understand how people will use a gaming device. And the dual USB-C ports are another thoughtful touch. You've got one at the bottom and one on the side, and both support charging and display out. If you're gaming in portrait, use the bottom port. If you're gaming in landscape, use the side port. It seems minor, but it just shows that Lenovo's thought about the actual use cases and not just the spec sheets. Let's talk cameras. It's just a bad story. We'll be quick. You get a 13 megapixel rear camera and it just takes photos that look like they're from 2015. Video has some of the worst stabilization I've seen in a long time. You have an 8 megapixel front camera. It is barely acceptable. We'll leave it at that. it's a tablet. Don't expect much. Audio, though, is a very different story. The stereo speakers on this are genuinely impressive. At 50% volume, they're louder than a MacBook Air. At 100%, they're almost uncomfortable. Gaming sounds punchy, videos are clear, and there's actual bass response. There is no headphone jack, though, because I guess it's 2025 and we can't have nice things. The Legion Tab 3 also benefits from 12 gigabytes of RAM, meaning that for onboard AI stuff, it's not gonna be incredible, but it doesn't really have any of that, so it's perfectly adequate for gaming. But then there's the elephant in the room, and that is competition. At $999, this is not really an easy sell because you could go out and get a Steam Deck OLED at $899, and that gives you PC games with 512 gigabytes of storage. The brand new Switch 2 at $699 has Nintendo's exclusive library and costs $300 less. The iPad mini, that starts at $799 with the same 128 gigabytes as the base Legion Tab, but with Apple's app ecosystem and longer software support. So why would you pay more for this? Well, because those aren't really competitors, are they? The things that compete with this are flagship phones. Because it's Apple, the iPad mini is just hostile to game streaming services and sideloading. The Switch 2, despite being brand new, is still locked into Nintendo's ecosystem. Great if you want to play Mario Kart, and not very good if you don't want to play anything that isn't Mario Kart. The Steam Deck OLED is brilliant, but it's twice as thick. Battery life is still measured in a few hours and not sessions. And the Legion Tab is the only device here that gives you the full Android experience. Xbox Game Pass, GeForce Now, PlayStation Remote Play, side-loaded apps, modified APKs, emulators, in a package optimized for gaming with all-day battery life.
Okay, so I filmed this a little while ago, and side-loaded apps are now dead for Android. Well, at least they will be soon. So keep that in mind. That is no longer a benefit. Back to the video.
And that's why gaming tablets are taking off. They're not trying to replace your console or your laptop. They're replacing your phone as your mobile gaming device because that industry is huge. And because phones, let's be honest, they're just bad for gaming. They're too small or they overheat, they kill your battery, they interrupt you with calls and notifications. But when you have a dedicated gaming tablet, that solves all of that while still running all of the apps and services that you already use. The Legion Tab 3, it isn't perfect. The display here should be OLED, the software, it needs a polish, the cameras are just embarrassing, and the accessory ecosystem basically doesn't exist. And at $999, it is firmly in premium territory. At least it is for a tablet, because when you compare it to a flagship phone, it's still half the price. And for what it's trying to be, a dedicated handheld gaming device that runs Android can definitely be a media device as well. Well, the performance is exceptional, the battery life is strong, the speakers are great, and the 8.8-inch form factor is spot on for handheld gaming. Yes, it is expensive, but if you're someone who actually plays mobile games seriously, who subscribes to cloud gaming services, or just wants the best mobile gaming experience without destroying your phone's battery in the long run, the premium of this might actually be worth it. Is it going to be my daily driver? No, definitely not. But it has earned a spot in my travel bag, because when I want to game on the go without compromises, without thermal throttling, without killing my phone, the Legion Tab 3 is genuinely the best solution I've found yet. Gaming tablets are popular because phones are bad at gaming and getting worse. As phones get thinner, cameras get bigger, there's less room for cooling and batteries. And the Legion Tab is the opposite approach. It's gaming first and everything else second. And honestly, sometimes that's exactly what you want. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Are tablets the future of mobile gaming, or just a weird niche that'll disappear in a year? Drop a comment below and please do subscribe. And as always, catch you in the next one. Ciao for now.